Okay, excellent. Thanks, Austin, for letting me use his iPad. So it's actually good because I can do a fresh start. So Zeit is a personalized iPad magazine that gets smarter as you use it. What's interesting about Zeit is that actually the company is 6 years old. It started off as a research project out of the University of British Columbia. At the time, I wasn't part of the company, but sort of spun off the university. And the idea at the time was that search is a solved problem. If you want to find Hotmail, you type in Hotmail into a browser, and guess what? The first result is Hotmail. So the idea was that there's lots of results on the web that you're not seeing when you do that. The problem is that when someone is in search mode, they're probably wanting to go to Hotmail to check their mail. They really don't care about this really interesting article about how Hotmail converted from Linux to Microsoft backend, even if those things are really interesting to you at the time. So all this technology was built over many years, and the plugin never really, this Wario plugin that was built, it's W-O-R-I-O, Web of Research Iteration 1, never really caught on. But we had the good fortune to spend a lot of time on personalization technology over the years. So there are a few different layers of what we do. The first thing is that we look for really interesting articles across the web. And the way we do that is look at what we call social velocity. So things like tweeting and tagging, comments on articles. We look for really interesting articles. The second thing that we do is for all of that web content that we look at, we try to analyze it a bit. So we look at topicality. What's the article about? We look at things like named entities within the article. Who's the article talking about? And I think really interestingly also is we look at things like how the article is written. So when you pick up the New Yorker on the weekend, it's not that you read the New Yorker because you're getting a bunch of articles about New York. You read it because there's a certain type of article. It's written by a certain type of person. It's written in a certain style. I mean, this is really important for serendipity when you're looking at personalization. I think one of the fears about people with personalization is that you'll get boxed into things that only you like. But it's actually the case that if we can do a really good job of figuring out the type of things you like to read, actually we can give you a lot of serendipity. The third component of the technology is collaborative filtering. And we look at both items that are similar across the web and users that are similar across the web. Turns out that even if you're not even on Twitter, Twitter could be there could be a Twitter user somewhere across the world who's a great predictor of the types of links that you like. And then finally, within the application, there's user-based personalization. So people thumbs up and thumbs down things. And we use that as signals to deliver you more news. So let me show you how this works. So when a user comes into the application, they have the option of entering in their Twitter username. I'll do my Twitter and Delicious. And the idea here is that a user doesn't have to enter these, but you can jumpstart the personalization. And essentially what we do here is look at the links that you shared. We look at the kind of people that you follow on Twitter, and we can jumpstart the personalization. So my guess is that I have shared enough things on Twitter that it should do a pretty darn good job of figuring out who I am. So you can see that I like business, I like tech stuff, I like to drink. I used to work for Microsoft, and I've worked for a number of search engines. So even without really knowing a lot about me, Zeit has already figured out what kind of person I am. And this is really cool because it's a moment of delight for people when they first enter the application. I mean, people who've been around for a while have probably heard about personalization companies for a long time, and it usually just doesn't get it. And this is sort of the first aha moment that people have when they come into Zeit. For a user that doesn't have Twitter or Google Reader or Delicious, you can manually start it up also. So we give you a set of standard topics that you can choose from. And then we have a long tail of topics you can choose from. And this is a real differentiator against a lot of other social media magazines that are out there, that it's not just dozens of topics that we have thousands of topics. For example, one of the other things I'm into that wasn't picked up is, if I could spell it right, taxidermy. So I mean, that's a real tail topic, right? I mean, this is not the kind of thing you would expect in a regular social media magazine. So the magazine learns as you use it. So in top stories, we try to show you the stories that are most personalized to your interests. So there are many pages here. We try to present it in the style of a magazine. So we spent a lot of time on actually the layout algorithm. So how the stories are laid out is really critical to how people read a magazine or read a newspaper. So we spent a lot of time on this, and we'll spend a lot more time. Let's pick an article about Peter Thiel, someone with whom I have a lot in common. So you can read the article. As you can see, we present the article in what we call reader mode. So essentially, we look at the most important text in the article, the most important images, and we strip out the header, the footer, and consequently the ads. This caused us to get sort of a nasty letter from a who's who in the publishing world about 2 weeks after launch. But we kind of solved that problem right now by rendering those pages in web mode for publishers who don't appreciate us stripping out the ads. Now, after you've read the article, you can give us a little bit more information. So there's a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. If we extract the author, you can say more from this author or more from this source. And then you can tell us a little bit more about what you like. So you might not want a stream of information about innovation, but it's probably good for us to know that in, for example, your business section, we should tune it so it gives you stories that are more about innovation. And then you can also share a lot. The application has been out for about 2.5 months now, and it's been really interesting to see how people use it. So a lot of people thumbs up and thumbs down things, which is really good for us because obviously for a personalized magazine, you want people to personalize it. People share a lot of things too, which I think is really encouraging also, because if it's so interesting that you want your friends to know about it also, we think that's a really good thing. So I mean, overall, in some sense, it's a really simple application, right? We're showing you interesting streams of information about topics that you're interested in, and it gets smarter and smarter as you use it. So the presentation is simple, but I think the data speaks for itself. So I really encourage you, all those of you that have iPads, download it and check it out, and see how it works after a week after you've tuned it to deliver you the kind of articles that you like. That's all I got. So I'm open to questions.
Do we have questions for Mark? Yeah. Is it available on any other platforms?
It's currently not, so the question was, is it available on other platforms? It's currently not available on other platforms. It's a very small company right now. We have 5 people plus me. The back-end technology doesn't limit it to anything, right? So it could be on the web, it could be on your iPhone. So eventually we're looking at moving to additional platforms. In fact, the original version of Zeit that we built was built on the web, but it sort of looked like Google News and Craigslist had a very ugly love child. So we decided to, one of the reasons that we did the iPad first was that we were really inspired by the form factor. It really looks like a magazine. It feels like a magazine. It feels like the kind of thing you can plop down on the couch while Fox News is running in the background and actually pay attention to really interesting information instead of what's coming off of the TV. And in fact, that's our usage patterns. We see most people using Zeit in the evenings and the weekends. So we were really inspired by the device itself.
Another question. Here?
It's really interesting, like as a user, to personalize whatever you want to read. But for me, as a user, I don't want to limit myself to my own interests. So I want to know about the community interests and my friends' interests and add to that personalized space. Do you see something like that in your? For sure. I mean, right now we sort of, most social media magazines right now just mirror your Twitter feed. So it's one thing to do to take your Twitter feed and separate it into technology, entrepreneurship, taxidermy. It's another thing to say, wow, you like all these things. Here are some other articles you like. So one way we can try to combat that is by looking for articles that are similarly written to the kinds of articles you like. But I think you make a really good point that at some point it's probably a good idea to integrate some of the social aspects that are so prevalent in our lives today. So Twitter is a great source for finding content that you probably wouldn't have otherwise come across. So we're working on ways to better integrate that into the application without sort of overwhelming you with useless information. So there's really a balance there, is that you want discovery and to find interesting things, but you don't want it to be all crap. I mean, one of the things I always say is that if we only get thumbs up and never get thumbs down, we've failed because we haven't tried hard enough to put something new in front of you.
Mark, thank you very much.
Thanks.